Leaders from around the world will be discussing the future of Gaza as President Trump is set to host a signing event for his new Board of Peace in Davos later this week.
Chief Foreign Correspondent Trey Yingst joins us now from Tel Aviv with the latest. Hey, Trey.
Yeah, hey guys, good morning. Later this week, President Trump is set to hold a signing ceremony in Davos, Switzerland for the Board of Peace. This event is scheduled to take place on Thursday morning and will mark the transition into phase 2 of the Gaza ceasefire deal. Around 60 invitations were sent out, mostly to leaders of foreign countries. Countries like Canada and Argentina have already agreed to join. Others, including Russia, are reviewing the invitation, and France has rejected the offer from President Trump. The president responded last night.
Do you have any response to President Macron saying he will not join the Board of Peace?
Oh, did he say that? Well, nobody wants it because he's going to be out of office very soon. So, that's all right.
Did you invite President Putin to join the...
Yes, he's one of the people. These are world leaders. And the answer is yes.
The efforts to stabilize the Israel-Hamas ceasefire come as Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu issued another warning for Iran.
If Iran makes a mistake and attacks us, we will act with a force that Iran has not yet experienced. No one can predict what the future holds for Iran, but one thing is clear. Whatever happens, Iran will not return to what it was.
The remarks come as Israel's chief of staff indicates the IDF is prepared to employ unprecedented firepower against Iran in the event of another war. The chief of staff noted that many lessons were learned during the 12-day war last summer that are already being implemented. Reports indicate Israel communicated to the Americans it could absorb 700 Iranian ballistic missiles if it meant regime change in the aftermath of Iran's crackdown on protesters. Now, open-source tracking data indicates that U.S. military assets continue to flow into the region, into neighboring countries like Jordan, where there are new American fighter jets staging. Guys?
Hey, Trey, I don't know if you got any word yet, but that infamous prison in Syria holding all those ISIS and al-Qaeda guys, evidently, there was a breakout. And they said, and it looks like the Kurds left and there's nobody in control, and that's just 2 miles from our base. Have you heard about that?
Yeah, we have, and there's a lot of shaky information around this SDF ceasefire deal in northeastern Syria. But what I can tell you is that Ahmed al-Sharaa, the new president of Syria, has been working with the Americans, including Tom Barak, President Trump's special envoy to Syria, to try and determine some sort of ceasefire agreement that would allow his government to take over the entirety of the country, and working with the Americans and European partners to stabilize, to ensure that countries like Iran are not building bases inside Syria. There's a major issue here, though. Many of the ISIS fighters and their families were taken to these prisons in Syria after the fall of the Islamic State. And there is this report indicating that some of these fighters and their families were able to break out of a facility that was controlled by U.S.-backed forces in the region. And it raises major questions about if ISIS is trying to reconstitute in this part of Syria. We've already seen those U.S. strikes in recent weeks against ISIS in this part of the world. And it could indicate that the Americans will have to keep a close eye on the spread of the Islamic State within Syria and the borders that are now controlled by the new president.
All right, the Board of Peace, really quickly, this is just about phase 2 of rebuilding Gaza, right? Making it a better city?
Yeah, absolutely. And look, President Trump's special envoy, Steve Witkoff, and his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, have been working around the clock to implement phase 2 of this ceasefire agreement. Many people said it wasn't possible, that the war was too far gone, and that the Palestinian people would never agree to some sort of phase 2 that ultimately has phased out Hamas from governing power inside of Gaza. Now, the Board of Peace is a broader effort by the Trump administration, not only to usher in this new technocratic government for the Gaza Strip, but also to usher in a period of stability for the region that will allow these regional countries to flow money into Gaza for rebuilding efforts, to create a neighbor for Israel that is not building tunnels and not preparing for another war, but rather looking into the future of the Middle East. And so we spoke last week with U.S. officials who say they are very confident this phase is going to hold, and that the president has been directly involved in ensuring the success of his 20-point peace plan for Gaza.
Thanks, Trey, for bringing us those updates. A lot going on. You're there in Tel Aviv. I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.